Original.
Hello and welcome to Web Crawlers, the podcast where we do a deep dive into some of our favorite unsolved mysteries. Each week we will introduce our topic, lay out our research and findings, reveal some conspiracy theories, and conclude with our own hypothesis. Who knows, we might even solve the case. I am Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Stettin.
And I'm producer Maria.
Hell yeah, you are. Web Crawlers has a Patreon to get access to rewards, bonus episodes, shout-outs, merchandise discounts. Please go to patreon.com/webcrawlers. You can donate as little as $2 a month to become one of our bimbo patrons. Please also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
It's very important.
Yes. If you give us a 5-star review, screenshot and DM it to us, and we will shout you out on the podcast. Also, Erios has a hotline. We should insert the jingle again because a few of my friends who listen to the podcast texted me literally saying, "Where's the jingle?"
Wow. Okay.
Wow, I have to add it. I've been lazy because we've been singing it. And I'm like, well,
We've been singing it. No, I think the singing, it's beautiful, but I think people really enjoy that jingle.
Yeah, put it back in.
I'll put it back in. I'll put it back in right here.
626-604-6262.
We got a couple more comments. One is women behaving badly, and I like it. I love these women's irreverent commentary on all things creepy and weird. They make me laugh. No feet pictures necessary. And then you guys have to do an episode on communes. The material and scandals there should make for a great episode. Communes. Okay.
That's kind of cool. Are those more reviews?
Yeah, these are 2 new reviews.
Who wrote them? Let's shout out who wrote them.
Lindsay's review was the women behaving badly, and then Taylor Morgan was the communes one.
Cool. Thank you guys very much for writing those reviews. Who are our new patrons?
We have Chelsea H and Kelly W.
Why does Chelsea, spelled like that, feel familiar to me?
Well, because she sent us an email last week. Okay. And now she's a patron.
Amazing.
Wow.
She's basically a friend of the podcast now.
Friend of the pod, Chelsea.
Chelsea with a C. 2 C's.
Yeah, love it. Thank you, Chelsea. I'm super excited for our main story today. And while researching, we found out something new and crazy.
Yeah.
About this couple. You know them from Amityville Horror, the Conjuring movies, Annabelle. Melissa, what is our main story about?
So our main story is about Ed and Lorraine Warren. They were paranormal investigators and authors associated with prominent cases of hauntings. Ed was a self-taught and self-professed demonologist, and Lorraine was a clairvoyant. They investigated over 10,000 cases of the supernatural. They were among the first investigators of the famous Amityville haunting. Their case files are the basis for all of the Conjuring movies, too. They claim to have scientific evidence that proves the existence of ghosts. But did they really? Let's get into it.
We've been called ghost hunters, paranormal researchers.
But we prefer to be known simply as Ed and Lorraine Warren.
For more than 50 years, Lorraine Warren and her husband Ed searched and found ghosts around the world.
Do ghosts really exist?
A little bit of background. Also, when you wrote, but did they really? I'm like, yeah, they really did.
Mm-hmm.
Ed and Lorraine Warren started dating when they were 16. Lorraine was at the movies with some friends in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Ed was an usher at the movie theater. It was Melissa.
What she put? What did she do?
I wrote, it was love at first fright.
Oh, Melissa. How could you?
Just pizzazzing it up a little.
Yeah, you really did. When Ed turned 17, he went off to fight in World War II. And when he came back, they got married. A few years later, they had a daughter, Judy. Ed's first career was actually painting. He would set up on the side of the road and sell his paintings for a few dollars. Lorraine was a clairvoyant and light trance medium, meaning she could channel the spirits of the dead by entering a trance. She grew up going to Catholic school and was afraid to feel different. Her parents didn't want her to cultivate her gift. Ed didn't have a gift, just an education in metaphysics and a curiosity.
He didn't have a gift.
He had no gifts.
He was basic.
He was basic. He also believed the house that he grew up in was haunted. Ed began to combine his interest in demonology, his art skills, and his wife's psychic abilities to kind of cultivate their business. This was like so bizarre, this part.
Yeah.
When the couple, and this felt like a little con artisty.
Yes.
When the couple would hear of a house that was potentially haunted, Ed would set up outside of it and paint the house, like paint a painting of it. Then he would he would
just paint it blue.
He would just paint it. And then he would like knock on the door of the person's house and be like, hey, I painted this painting of your house. Would you like it? And they'd be like, oh, okay. And then he'd be like, also, I'm a paranormal investigator and I heard your house was haunted. And then he would end up getting a tour of the house usually. And then the tour would end up with Ed and Lorraine doing a paranormal investigation of the home.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems pretty conny to me.
Yeah, I think that's
it's a pretty good
really
scam.
Bizarre. Yeah, it is a good scam. We should do that.
But you know, like when someone comes to your door and says like, hey, I painted a picture of your house, to like close the door because you know they're scamming you on something.
This was back in like
the
the 50s, though. This was when people were just opening their doors for whoever.
For anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah.
So in 1952, when the Warrens were in their mid-20s, they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, which is the oldest ghost hunting group in New England. There are about 100 members, and they've investigated over 10,000 cases. They're still up and running today. Their website says the specialty is demonology, possessions, hauntings, and supernatural. So the Warrens didn't charge for their investigations. They did it all for free. But they made their money from movie and TV rights and books and lectures and tours of museums of supernatural artifacts that's next to their home.
Yeah, that's one of the most famous things about them is they have that in the movies, is they have in their home, or I guess next to their home, they had a museum of they would take artifacts from all of the investigations that they did. So they have like the Annabelle doll.
Oh, right.
All this crazy stuff. And they would keep it in a house or like a room. And they would charge people to come and like look at all the haunted artifacts that they would get from each of their paranormal investigations.
Cool.
So they wrote a bunch of books about the paranormal and about their private investigations into all these reports of paranormal activity. And a lot of the stories of ghost hauntings that were popularized by them have been adapted or have indirectly inspired dozens of films, TV series, and documentaries, including 17 films in the Amityville horror series, and even 7 films in the Conjuring universe.
Additionally, by the way, that New England Society of Paranormal Research, after Ed and Lorraine died pretty recently.
A year ago, April 2019.
It's now ran by their daughter, Judy, and Judy's husband, Tony Spera, who are also now like ghost hunters.
Yeah. Stays in the family.
Yeah, it's
How lovely.
crazy. Okay, so this is the weird thing that we found out. I didn't know about this, and I told my mom that we were researching Ed and Lorraine Warren, and my mom was like, do you know they had a sex slave? And I was like, I beg your pardon, but apparently they kind of did.
Yeah, you texted the chain, and I was like, that's insane. And then I Googled it, and I was like, oh no, this is 100% real.
Well, I only found the one article you sent me on it. I couldn't find anything else about it.
It was that main article in the Hollywood Reporter, and then there was like some other random articles
Really?
that were referencing the Hollywood Reporter. I mean, the Hollywood
Interesting.
Reporter is like
Yeah,
legit.
that's big. Yeah, oh, totally.
That's where I get all my news.
Me too. According to the Hollywood Reporter and my mom, Ed Warren had a young girl and assistant who lived in the house with he and Lorraine, who he would regularly have sex with, or like he was in a relationship with her. And apparently Lorraine knew about it. The reporter reports, in the early 1960s, Ed Warren initiated a relationship with an underage girl. She was 15. With Lorraine's knowledge, now in her 70s, Judith Penny, who was the girl, has said in a sworn declaration that she lived in the Warrens' house as Ed's lover for 4 decades.
Oh, God.
It is unclear whether Warner Brothers took any action in response to these allegations, blah, 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 blah. The Warners declined to comment. Ed Warren died in 2006, and Lorraine Warren's attorney, Gary Barkin, says the family has no knowledge of the alleged conduct, and his client, now 90, is in declining health and unable to respond to the allegations. So Lorraine was like, I'm not talking about this, I'm too old.
Yeah.
For the next 40 years, she said, the woman said she had a sexual relationship with Ed with Lorraine's knowledge. At first, Penny stayed in a bedroom directly opposite the one occupied by the married couple. But eventually she moved into an apartment built for her above the home.
Oh.
Yeah. One night, Ed would sleep downstairs, she said in a recording, and then one night he'd sleep upstairs with her. So that's directly from the reporter. I don't know, man. Like, when was this? I mean, okay, the 50s?
The 50s.
So in the early 1960s.
So Ed would have been like in his 30s.
So like, it's never cool to have sex with a 15-year-old girl. But like, the 60s were like a weird time, right?
I love a butt.
But yeah, they were.
Isn't that when like Austin Powers was?
Yes.
And that was.
But when you're like talking to demons all the time, like you're not going to live by the rules, you know? You're living on the edge.
That's what I think too. And like initially this Penny, okay, well, I don't want to get into a shady area. So that's just something that happened.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You can either villainize them for that, or you can be like, weird swinging couple.
And if she stayed for 40 years.
No, Melissa.
That's what I'm thinking. She was like allowed to go if she wanted.
But then it's like, was she really allowed to leave though? I mean, if you're 15 and you're like.
Maybe she got Stockholm syndrome.
It's problematic.
You know she was chained to the wall. You know they had her.
They were probably doing exorcisms on her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy. This woman's still alive. Yeah, Penny. We should get in touch with Penny.
Judith Penny, yeah. She's like 90.
I wonder what our friend of the pod,
John
Tenney, would think of the Warrens.
Oh, well, we should.
We'll ask him. We can also ask our guests today what they think of the Warrens.
Yeah. I've got a lot of questions. It's just hard to believe people who make a living like the Warrens did, where it's like, I don't know if you guys are going to go into this, but the Amityville Horror wasn't based on a true story, right?
Yeah, it is.
No.
Well, on Snopes it says it's not.
We'll get into that. It's
okay.
Well, it's coming up.
Okay, but in my opinion, yes, it is based on a real. It's based on a real haunting.
We'll see about that.
This is going to be the first episode where we disagree on things.
I don't know. I think Melissa didn't quite agree with all your mushroom.
No, I'm fully on board with those.
Okay, wait, but we need to clarify this before we do the episode, I think. Melissa, do you believe in ghosts?
I don't really.
Okay, well, I really firmly believe in ghosts. Maria,
Have you seen a ghost, Allie?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it, for God's sake.
I don't even know what there is to talk about. I just it can't be explained. Like people who see, it's like a constant thing. It's not like a one-time thing.
Well, what are you seeing? Explain it. What are you talking about? Say what you see.
She's like, you guys see the ghost sitting next to me right now, right?
Yeah, what are you talking about? You're saying it's, you can't explain it. What is it?
Is it like an old person like with chains
No,
dragging?
no, that's not it at all. It's like an energy. It's like hard to explain if you don't believe in it or if you haven't experienced it. You know that feeling where someone's standing too close behind you and you can like sense their energy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it kind of feels like that, but like all the time, like where it's just you can sense someone who's like in the room with you, but there's no one there. And like I think everyone's attuned to it, but some people just ignore it. But if you're more tapped into it, you just notice it all the time, where it's like you feel like someone's there with you, or sometimes you'll just like see a shadow, or sometimes you'll just see like a glimpse of someone really quick and then it will just like go away. A weird story, which I've never shared with anyone except for like my therapist. It is a weird story. Is when I was really little, I used to see ghosts all the time. And like my brothers did too. Or not my oldest brother, but me and Jason did. What did occur?
Sorry, I was sorry. Craig heard me yelling at you and thought I was wondering if I was okay.
And did you say you're not okay?
I was screaming. What are you talking about? You probably thought I was being taken away.
To be Ed and Lorraine's sex slave.
All right, sorry.
So I used to see ghosts all the time as like a little kid. Because I think you're more like attuned to that as a kid. And also when I was a kid, my grandma was taking me to a lot of these like weird like Reiki sessions and stuff. And so I was just like really tapped into it. So I used to see ghosts a lot. And then my mom had to take me to like a psychic, not a therapist. It was a psychic. I was also in therapy, but she took me to a psychic and the psychic had to teach me like how to like turn it off and like how to.
God.
Wow.
Yeah. And this sounds like if you're not a believer, you'd be like, okay, so you're schizophrenic. But like, it's not, it's just like very different. It's a weird phenomenon. So anyways, yes.
You asked me if I believe in ghosts. I've never seen one, so it's hard to believe 100%, right? But I do believe certain people are more open to different energies and different just things that other people are closed off to. So I definitely think that you're more in tune to like energies and stuff.
I don't even know if I would clarify it as a ghost because it's not like but I think maybe some people are more like, oh, I see something and I know like the person's like whole life history and like I can see like maybe an actual person. Like it doesn't work like that for me at all. But sometimes I'm like aware of like another energy in the room with me.
Yeah, like I do believe that like places have energies and like if people die in certain places, like they hold a certain type of energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, Melissa's coming around now. Interesting.
I've never seen a ghost, so I don't know, but.
I'm going to kill myself and haunt you.
That'll show her.
Yeah. Then you'll
nice to have
really
someone
come around.
You just be like, is he hot? Just asking if everyone's hot.
Yeah.
Is he hot? I don't know. Ghost Alley.
I don't know. Oh, it's okay, Bubba. I scared my dog. Okay, so what are some notable investigations that Ed and Lorraine took part of?
Okay, so there's the Annabelle.
Yes.
So in 1968, 2 roommates claimed that the Raggedy Ann doll was possessed by the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins. So the Warrens took the doll, telling the roommates that it was being manipulated by an inhumane presence and put it on display.
Inhuman, but also
inhumane. Inhumane.
It was treating dogs badly.
And they put it on display at the family's occult museum. And this is the movie Annabelle Creation. They're both spin-offs and both spin-off prequels of The Conjuring and Annabelle Comes Home. Yeah. Are loosely based on this story.
You know what we should do is we should do mini episodes on each of these hauntings.
Yeah, because there's a lot of them.
Yeah. At first, they thought it was the spirit of like this young girl. And it was these 2 nurses who had like, I think picked it up at like or their friend gave it to them or something. Their friend gave them this doll and they thought that they felt like it was the spirit of like a young girl was in it. And then it was causing like a ruckus in their home. And then they called Ed and Lorraine and they were like, no, there's a demon inside it. We have to get this.
Don't ever accept a doll from a used doll.
Well, we talked about that eBay haunted doll market.
Oh my God, yes.
That's crazy.
They should have kept the doll as it really looks in real life for all the Conjuring and Annabelle movies.
Oh, 100%. I agree. They did not. They did that doll an injustice.
Oh, yeah.
Because they like made it all like ventriloquisty, but it's like just make it a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah, for sure. That should be your cause.
Yeah. I'm gonna start. Yeah, I'm gonna do something to like reshoot scenes from Annabelle in the Conjuring universe.
Like how they had to CGI the buttholes out of the movie Cats.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly like that.
Exactly like that. And then there's the Perrin family. So in 1971, the Warrens claimed that the Harrisville, Rhode Island home of the Perrin family was haunted by a witch who lived there in the early 19th century. And according to the Warrens, Bathsheba Sherman cursed the land so that whoever lived there somehow died a terrible death. The story is subject of The Conjuring. And Lorraine was a consultant to the production and actually had a cameo in the film.
Yeah. I don't remember her cameo.
I don't either. It's probably just like she was like an extra, just like waving.
She played like a mailman or something.
Yeah. And then there's the Amityville Horror. So the Warrens are probably best known for their involvement in the 1975 Amityville Horror, in which a New York couple, George and Kathleen Lutz, claimed that their house was haunted by a violent, demonic presence so intense that it eventually drove them out of their home. On November 13th, 1974, 23-year-old Ronald J. DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family while they were asleep in the house. Only a year later, I think it was like 13 months after, the Lutz family bought the home, but they only lasted 28 days before they moved out. Did you guys read the Amityville Horror book when you were a kid?
No, did you? I don't know how to read.
Yeah, I read it when I was like 11 or 12, and it scared the shit out of me. I don't know where I got it.
Imagine 11-year-old Melissa reading that.
Yeah.
Eyes wide.
All I read were I read Fear Street books. That's all I read was just terrifying books.
That's so cute.
Pretty cool.
I read Nickelodeon magazine.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That
was the best.
So the Lutz family claimed to smell strange odors and see green slime oozing out of the walls and keyholes, and experienced cold spots in certain areas of the house. And when a priest came to bless the house, he allegedly heard a voice scream, "Get out!" He told the Lutzes to never sleep in that particular room in the house. There's a rumor that the house was built on an Indian burial ground.
Yes, queen.
But I went to AmityvilleMurders.com, and it says that it's a myth. And there's no record that there was ever an Indian burial ground or sanitarium on Ocean Avenue. So, wah, wah.
I don't know about that.
So then on March 6, 1976, Ed Lorraine, along with a crew from a television station, Channel 5 in New York, they investigated the house. And during the course of the investigation, they took a series of infrared time-lapse photos. One of the images allegedly showed a demonic boy with glowing eyes who was standing at the foot of a staircase.
Yeah, that picture feels fake to me.
Yeah.
It sounds fake.
I think it sounds real.
Allegedly, though, there was no one else in the house, and it just it captured randomly that photo.
Infrared photos, you're gonna see some weird shit on there.
But have you looked at the picture? It's like a fully fledged boy.
Yeah, it feels fake. So the Amityville Horror conspiracy authors Stephen and Roxanne Kaplan said the case was a hoax, but Lorraine told a reporter for the Express Times newspaper that it wasn't a hoax. And it was the basis for the 1977 book, The Amityville Horror, which was adapted into movies. And according to Benjamin Radford, the story was refuted by eyewitnesses, investigations, and forensic evidence. And in 1979, lawyer William Weber reportedly said that he, Jay Anson, and the occupants invented the horror story over many bottles of wine.
But
for fun?
For money.
But they didn't even get that much money for the rights, though.
Well, it says on Snopes that they had seen this Exorcist had just come out in December 1973, and it was like big in the public's mind, like demonic possessions and stuff. So that's how they spun the story.
Interesting. Okay.
But then Daniel, the son, I looked him up. He lives in Queens. He claims the house ruined his life and he still has nightmares. But he also said that his stepdad George was physically and verbally abusive.
Interesting.
So he did like one interview where he just talked about like how awful his stepdad was, but he doesn't really remember much.
The reporter's like, this is not what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So now, Maria, would you move into a haunted house for the right price?
Well, it depends. It depends. I've never experienced any house hauntings. Like, nothing's ever, like, gone bump in the night. There was the time when all the lights were turning on in Craig and my apartment, but then we realized it was just, like, a blown fuse or something like that. But it was really frightening for a little bit.
Like, if it was, like, a famous haunt, it was like, oh, this house is haunted, but then, like, someone bought it and, like, redid it. There's, like, a Japanese garden, and it's, like, your dream home.
Sounds beautiful.
I don't know if that
A
doesn't
sunken
sound like
living
a dream
room.
home. Like an old... Okay, so I wouldn't, because even when I hear someone has died somewhere or like something horrible has happened somewhere, whether that energy is there or not, I'm burdened with that energy of just knowing that it happened there. Like, I went to like Normandy. I went to like the beaches of Normandy, and just like walking around, you're just like, oh my God. Like, it's just like there, the knowing that these, like, if you drive by like the Menendez brothers' house or something like that in Beverly Hills, you're like, oh my God. Like, there's just an energy to knowing what the history was there.
Yeah.
And so that would really bump me out, I think.
I would.
You would move in?
Yeah, in a second. I think there's actually a show on Quibi, which I like refuse to watch Quibi, but where it's called like Haunted House Flip, where they take haunted houses and flip them.
That sounds like something I would have pitched and no one would have bought.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think I've like pitched that show. Like, I think that is like our podcast. Like, I think we've pitched that. I think we pitched that to Sony.
I just don't understand.
And then they just make it on their own.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a few other, well, I mean, there's a lot, but some other ones. The Enfield poltergeist. In 1977, Ed and Lorraine investigated claims that a family in the North London suburb of Enfield was haunted by poltergeist activity. While a number of independent observers dismissed the incident as a hoax carried out by attention-hungry children, the Warrens were convinced that it was a case of demonic possession. The story was the inspiration for The Conjuring 2, which was a good movie. Although critics say the Warrens were involved to a far lessened degree than portrayed in the movie, and in fact had shown up to the scene uninvited and been refused admittance to the home.
Oh no.
That's embarrassing.
Showed up why wouldn't they invite them to the set? Maybe they were like...
No, uninvited to the actual house, the Enfield poltergeist.
Oh.
There was like the haunting, and the Lorraine and Ed showed up to the haunting, and they were like, we'll investigate it. Ed was probably outside painting a picture of the house. In 1981, Arne Cheyenne Johnson was accused of killing his landlord, Alan Bono. Ed and Lorraine Warren had been called prior to the killing to deal with the alleged demonic possession of the younger brother of Johnson's fiancée. The Warrens subsequently claimed that Johnson was also possessed. I don't know if I believe in, like, possession.
Yeah, the whole exorcism possession thing is...
I don't jump on that train.
No.
How come?
I don't know, but maybe it's one of those things where I've never seen it or experienced it, so I don't believe it. But then, like, the same could be said for seeing ghosts for other people, so I don't know.
I think if you're asking me, which I don't think you did, but I'm going to just...
What's your thought, Maria?
I think that exorcisms became a thing before mental health was ever truly recognized as something.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
And so I think the stories of like the way people acted or like having a demon in them are very much things that you could all equate to certain types of mental illnesses.
Yeah, like schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I just think it's the stories we tell ourselves to kind of make it into something more magical than it
Yeah, and I feel like all
today.
These exorcists are kind of like faith healers, where they're just like kind of taking advantage of people.
Yeah, for sure. At the trial, Johnson attempted to plead not guilty by reason of demonic possession. That's not a thing.
It is. It's that movie. What's that movie that she's the Emily
Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Emily Rose. Isn't that her defense? Is like possession?
But can't you do
like
like reasonable insanity? I feel like when you're taking the bar exam, they're not like, tell us about like not guilty by reason of demonic possession. I'm Googling that. Not
well, that's
guilty.
the same thing as insanity, right?
Well, that's what you would plead, not. Yeah, I think you would say by insanity, not guilty by reason of demonic possession.
Demonic possession.
Okay, no, it wasn't in the Exorcism of Emily Rose. It wasn't that. It was that Tom Wilkinson was being prosecuted for the wrongful death of a girl thought to be demonically possessed because he administered the church-sanctioned exorcism that ultimately killed her.
Right.
So he was on the trial for murder for doing an exorcism.
Right, but you can't plead not guilty by reason of demonic possession. The plea would be not guilty by reason of insanity.
Yeah.
Not in my court.
I just want to clarify for all our lawyers out there listening. I don't want to get any bad reviews. The story is the inspiration for The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I have never seen that movie. Did that come out?
It comes out September
10th, 2020. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren tried to uncover the truth behind a murderer's claim of demonic possession. It comes out September 10, 2020 in Slovakia.
Ooh, let's go.
I'm down to if the travel ban, if the travel restrictions are up by then for Corona. Okay, the Snedeker House. In 1986, Ed and Lorraine proclaimed that the Snedeker House, a former funeral home, was infested with demons. The haunting in Connecticut is very loosely based on the Warrens' version of events. Horror author Ray Garton, who wrote an account of the alleged haunting of the Snedeker family in Southington, Connecticut, later called into question the veracity of the accounts contained in his book, saying the family involved, which was going through some serious problems like alcoholism and drug addiction, could not keep their story straight, and I became very frustrated. It's hard writing a nonfiction book when all the people involved are telling you different stories. To paranormal investigator Benjamin Radford, he said of Lorraine, if she told me the sun would come up tomorrow morning, I'd get a second opinion.
Ooh, burn.
Snaps. Pennsylvania residents Jack and Janet Smurl reported their home was disturbed by numerous supernatural phenomenon, including sounds, smells, and apparitions. I don't understand why demons are always like smelly.
Yeah, what's this like some weird smells and oozes?
There's always a stench. The Warrens became involved and claimed that Smurl home was occupied by 4 spirits and also a demon that allegedly sexually assaulted Jack and Janet, a threesome. The Smurls' version of their story was the subject of a 1986 paperback titled The Haunted and a made-for-TV movie of the same name. There is also something called The Werewolf. In 1991, the Warrens' book, Werewolf, The True Story of Demonic Possession, was published, in which they claim to have exorcised a demon, manifesting itself as a werewolf. The werewolf entity had made a brief appearance in the film Annabelle Comes Home. I don't believe in werewolves, I'll tell you that much.
You believe in Bigfoot?
See, like, I don't know about, like, this whole cryptid thing. Like,
yeah, that's a whole other thing. That's a whole, like...
That's a whole other world. And then they say,
Yeah,
like,
I don't
Bigfoot's a time traveler.
Who says that, Allie?
Everyone.
Like, everyone. That's, like, the common belief about Bigfoot is he's a time traveler.
From the past or the future?
Well, if you're a time traveler, there is no time.
Maybe it's from a parallel dimension.
I think he's a dimensional time traveler. That's a good point, Melissa.
Thank you.
He's like an interdimensional traveler.
Yes.
Yes. Bigfoot is an interdimensional traveler.
I think we actually learned that at Alien Con.
Oh. Yeah, that guy was talking about lecturing us on why not to time travel.
Yeah. we went to a seminar on time traveling, and it was just a guy talking for an hour about why we shouldn't time travel.
That was amazing.
Oh man, I can't wait for Alien Con again. Oh, the best.
AlienCon's canceled.
Oh no, that's one of the worst
doing
things of Corona.
A virtual.
Yeah, they should do virtual.
Are they?
Well, I don't know if they're doing a virtual, but our guests today, Greg and Dana, they're taking part in like a virtual, like supernatural thing that we should go to. Okay, sorry, continue.
Do you guys remember watching Road Rules?
I've never got into it.
There's the All-Stars Challenge back in early 2000s where they had to sleep in a haunted mental hospital, and Ed and Lorraine were on the episode.
Oh my God, that's wild.
Yeah, it was like, who was it? Eric Nees and John, the cowboy guy, the guy who goes, "True story."
That's crazy. I never watched that show, but
they had to prove that ghosts were real, and like they had to stay the night in this haunted place. It was scary.
Yeah, that is scary.
They didn't see anything though.
Whatever.
So then there's a couple of skeptics, Steve Novella and Perry DeAngelis. They're co-founders of the NESS, which is a New England Skeptical Society.
They sound so not fun.
They sound like big nerds.
Yeah, they sound like huge nerds.
Yeah. They investigated the Warrens, and they said they found the couple to be pleasant people, but their claims of demons and ghosts to be at best as tellers of meaningless ghost stories and at worst, dangerous frauds. They took the $13 tour and they looked at all the evidence that the Warrens had. They watched the videos, looked at the best evidence, and their conclusion was it's all blarney. They found common errors with flash photography and nothing evil in the artifacts. They said they have a ton of fish stories about evidence that got away. They're not doing good scientific investigation. They have a predetermined conclusion which they adhere to literally and religiously. But Lorraine said that the problem with Perry and Steve is they don't base anything on God. Steve responded, said it takes work to do solid critical thinking to actually employ your intellectual faculties and come to a conclusion that actually reflects reality. That's what scientists do every day, and that's what skeptics advocate. So Steve and Perry didn't think the Warrens would intentionally cause harm to anyone. They did caution that claims like Warrens serve to reinforce delusions and confuse the public about legitimate scientific methodology. And then in 2012, the Viking News of Westchester Community College, they wrote an editorial objecting to the use of student fees to pay Lorraine to lecture. Like she was going to come, they were going to pay her to lecture.
But like, don't people get paid to lecture? Like, isn't that a thing?
Yes. Warren, along with her late husband, Ed, are audacious and unabashed frauds, capitalizing on the completely meritless superstition which is all too common in modern society. That's what the article said.
They seem like closed-brained losers to me.
I mean, I do like that Ed and Lorraine did not charge for these investigations. That would make it seem really shady. The thing that I don't like about them is that they mix like religious elements into their investigations. So the hauntings would involve like faith, which for some people like sounds compelling and can like, you know, draw them in. It's kind of like faith healers.
But I think that there is like a spiritual aspect to, I mean, whatever your spirituality is, like hers obviously was more like doctrine, which I don't relate to, but I think there is a spiritual aspect to when you're relating to the other side. So I don't know. It's hard to distinguish between the two. But either way, like, I don't think that like working with spirits or like working with this other side, like, I don't think it's it's not like a scientific method, I would say, or maybe, I don't know. So I don't know how you can prove it like with science, or maybe you can, I don't know. But like, it's hard to be open to it when you're only relating to it scientifically instead of like emotionally. So I don't know.
Instead of like spiritually. Yeah. So like scientifically, sure, it can be disproven like by looking at photos or whatever. Right. But like spiritually and like.
I will say though, in a discrediting way, when I look at pictures of Ed and Lorraine, I do not get a good vibe.
Wow, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
What's the vibe you get?
I just get a little bit of a mucky vibe. Look at a picture of them and tell me be vibe police.
Look at her smile.
Well, maybe it's the sex slave they had in their basement.
That is kind of weird.
It wasn't in their basement. It was in their, what's the opposite of a basement? Their attic.
What's the opposite of a basement?
Google Ed and Lorraine and tell me if you think they're posy vibes.
Lorraine's got like a real evil smile. Like she's up to something.
They just don't feel like you know, like when people are like, yeah, I practice like what? Oh, she looks kind of happy here. But you know, when people are like, oh yeah, I'm like a white witch, or like there's like a lightness about her that maybe isn't there in pictures of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to send this picture to the group chat and then you can tell me what you think.
No, they look like if you went to their house, they'd lock the door and cook you in a pot of stew.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
They look like they look like Hansel and Gretel, like they look like they cook children.
Yeah, there's something a little off about their energy.
They're children cookers.
They are children cookers. Anyways, today I'm super excited because we have a really cool interview with another married paranormal investigator couple. They are paranormal investigators. They're the founders of Planet Weird. They're directors of the Paranormal Museum and executive producers and cast members. Cast members sounds weird. They are the show of Hellier on Amazon. Greg and Dana Newkirk. And to piggyback on last week's episode, Dana is also an incredible healer and witch. So we have a few questions for them on ghost hunting. They also do like UFO alien stuff. So we have a few questions for them. Thank you guys so much for coming. I so appreciate it. We're so excited.
Of course. Thank you for asking us. We're super excited.
Is it Hellier?
Hellier, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Unless you're from the area, then it's Hellier.
I'm making my mom watch it with me today because she's obsessed with ghost shows and she hasn't seen it yet.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Rabbit hole.
Good luck.
And she's used to Zach Baggins bullshit.
Oh, Zach
Baggins.
I can enjoy Zach Baggins bullshit just as much as anyone else.
Yes.
But I don't feel like there's not a whole lot of variety there. It's all the same.
I saw him. I was driving in Hollywood, and there was a black Suburban driving down the street, and his head and the two other investigators had their head. They all had their heads out the windows like puppies driving down Hollywood Boulevard.
They're probably catcalling.
I don't know. They were just taking it in.
On that note, first, do you guys mind introducing yourselves real quick?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm Dana Newkirk.
And I'm Greg Newkirk, and we are the curators of the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult.
I guess my first question is, how did you guys get into this unconventional line of business that you guys do?
Total accident.
It was really, we've both always really been interested in the paranormal, and we, many moons ago, we both had separate ghost hunting teams, and I'm from Canada and he's from the States. So we were friends for a while. This was in the GeoCities days, which definitely dates us.
Stop it.
Yeah. And so, my team in Canada got a Canadian television show about ghost hunting. And unfortunately, our male counterparts were
we got all butthurt about it.
Oh, no.
We were mortal enemies.
We were
like
for many
7
years.
years.
Wow.
No way.
Yes. And now we're married.
That's how all great love stories begin. You start as mortal enemies.
Just, ruthless
Mean
enemies.
boys.
Mean boys.
Are the ghosts in Canada nicer than the ghosts in America?
I kind of think that they are, to be honest with you.
Sorry. Really?
I do. They say sorry when they're haunting your house. They're like, sorry guys. But they're very passive aggressive, which is
That's so funny.
a Canadian trait.
You can go in that room if you want, but
It's up to you, I guess.
it's up to
Was
you.
I rattling these chains too loud?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What was your show like? Who were you ghost hunting with?
It was called the Girly Ghost Hunters. It was very back in the early 2000s, and it was actually, my team were all female. So it was just my friends and I traveling all around Ontario, investigating the paranormal. And so, it was really fun. I mean, it was amazing to get the chance to actually investigate in a lot of these places. And it was really fun to kind of be 4 young women traveling around. And
I'm pretty sure it's still on Amazon Prime.
It is. It's don't judge me for all my bucket hats in early 2000s.
Say the name name of the show again so everyone can watch it?
It was called The Girly Ghost Hunters.
We were talking about it. There's not enough shows nowadays with all female ghost hunters.
I know it's a really weird thing, and we talk about it a lot, that it seems as if as far as like paranormal television goes, they're really obsessed with, if there is a woman who's in some position of kind of being a leader, they always pair her up with man, because it's almost as if they don't think that we can hold a television show on our own. Which
well, have
really
you seen the show Ghost Girls?
No.
It's a show I did with my friend Amanda Lund for.
Oh no, I have. I wrote an article about this for Week in Weird years ago.
You did?
I did. Yes, I did.
Did we do okay? Like, did we do?
Yeah, no, it was a good article.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't Jack Black produce it?
Yeah.
See, yeah. I know.
But it was about two ghost hunting girls. Ghost girls.
It's great.
That's awesome. And I think there really needs to be a lot more of that. I mean, give us our own shows. We don't need dudes with us.
There's not a lot of representation that isn't like white Christian male in the paranormal in general.
Oh, interesting.
It's something that you look around and everything is very based on Christian religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's all white dudes yelling at demons. There's not a lot of representation outside of white Christian males.
So that's an interesting segue, because we were just talking about that. Our episode is on Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Sure.
We were talking about how they are, like, how Christianity and stuff like that kind of played a part in their whole thing. What are your thoughts on them, if any?
We get compared to them a lot, and we usually know that when people say that they're trying to
give
kind.
us a compliment.
Yes, they're trying to, and we take it as a compliment in that space. But I mean, we're pretty open with saying that a lot of what Ed and Lorraine were doing was actually pretty crappy.
It's kind of racist and xenophobic.
Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up reading Ed and Lorraine. So my dad is a Baptist minister.
Oh, wow.
That's what
Really?
Yeah. So you can imagine what he thinks about my chosen career path.
Yeah.
I grew up reading Ed and Lorraine, and I loved it. Like, that's part of the reason why I do what I do. But I just reread their first book, Ghost Hunters,
Really?
For the first time in 20 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And was kind of disgusted by it, because it's everything about how, like, for example, one of the stories in it is about how a man ends up, his home becomes possessed by a demon because they adopted a child from India.
Oh,
It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And Ed and Lorraine are responsible for a lot of the satanic panic that happened in the 80s. And
my
that
God.
destroyed a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
And people went to jail for false stories about being satanic ritually abused. And they stoked a lot of those flames.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow.
I think they believed a lot of what they said.
Right.
Sure.
But I think a lot of what came out of them wasn't just fun pop culture films. It was actually really harmful information.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at the general vibe of the paranormal community kind of today, it's rippled throughout it. And when you really talk to people, a majority of them are coming at it from a very Christian based perspective, and everything is demons and everything is evil, or it's grandma. It's like one of the two. There's nothing in the middle. So we're constantly kind of in this position where we're just trying to change people's perspectives about what is going on and what the potentials of the paranormal really is, as opposed to, a lot of the stuff that's been grandfathered in.
Yeah, that's interesting, because we were looking at the pictures of them and we were like, their vibe seems a little negative. If you look at all the pictures of them, there's something a little murky
Did you guys ever read that crazy Hollywood Reporter article about them from a couple years ago?
They have like a sex slave.
Yeah, and she was very, I think she was like 15.
Yes.
Really young too, wasn't she?
And she was allegedly, Ed always talked about this famous piece of footage. I remember back in the day when I was a teenager going to ghost conventions, Ed was in a coma at the time, but everyone would talk, all of his proteges would talk about this famous piece of footage he had of the white lady in the cemetery in Connecticut.
Right.
That little girl allegedly was her.
Oh.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Holy shit.
It's in the
crazy.
Hollywood Reporter article.
Oh my God. I didn't see that part, but we saw the part where it was like she lived in the house for like 40 years in some weird apartment upstairs, and he would just spend one night with Lorraine and then the next night with her.
Mm-hmm.
It's
great. Is that what we have to look forward to?
Yeah.
So you can see why we wanted you on, since you guys are so similar.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So speaking of getting back to you guys, so speaking of Hellier and stuff like that, and shedding a positive light on what ghost hunting and stuff like that can be, tell us about like your show and what that's all about.
Hellier is something that, I think like all of the best things in our lives was a complete accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was, I used to be part of a ghost hunting team when I was a kid, Ghost Hunters Incorporated. And we weren't actually incorporated. It just sounded cool when we were a bunch of teenage boys.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
This gives you an idea of how seriously we took it. We would steal our parents' credit cards and order crossbows and battle axes.
And what were you going to do with the ghosts with those crossbows?
Who knows? It looked cool in pictures, guys. It looked cool on our website.
It was definitely like the era of Buffy.
Yeah. So we were just kind of LARPing. Yeah. And that was the website that we had that stayed up for years and years. And we hadn't been part of that group for a long time, but I got an email to that old address from a man from Hellier, Kentucky, who said there are little creatures coming out of a mine shaft on the edge of my property. Yeah. They're terrorizing my children, tapping on the windows at night. They stole my dog.
Oh, God.
And he said, I was told that you have the expertise to help me with this.
Oh, my God.
Made no sense at all, because the website prominently featured a photo of us with torches.
It's like 97.
Batarangs, like ridiculous. And made no sense. But, I responded the way I normally do, which is, well, that's a great story. Can you give me some more? Like, I was living in Canada at the time. It's like, I can't come to rural Kentucky without some evidence. And the guy sends me photos of what he says are the creatures and 3-toed footprints.
Oh my God.
They were, and all of my Bigfoot hunting friends, who were the only people I could think to send them to, said, you should take this seriously because these prints have dermal ridges on them, which are basically fingerprints for your feet. Very hard to host. And so we started to take it seriously. And then we moved to Cincinnati, and a friend of ours that we'd met out at the Stanley Hotel, Carl Pfeiffer, he heard me tell this story on a podcast and realized we'd never followed up on it. And he just had this synchronicity storm. Meaningful coincidences kept happening to him. And he said, we have to go and follow this trail and see where it goes. And now we're in the second season. We just released the second season in November.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's crazier than we ever could have imagined. I mean, it involves cults and ancient gods and extraterrestrials and ghosts. And
had you moved to Cincinnati just on a whim, and then that was
we got our day jobs for the longest time where we were travel writers, and so we got a job heading up the weird section of a new startup here in Cincinnati.
But that's crazy because that's right on the border of Kentucky.
Literally, right
like
there.
We live in Kentucky now. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yep. So we ended up 2.5-3 hours away from Hellier.
Right. Wow.
Oh, that's so weird. I have a quick question about Bigfoot, only because we were literally talking about him like 2 minutes ago. Do you think he is an interdimensional, or she? Do you think they are an interdimensional time traveler?
I mean, I think we have different ideas. So for me, I think a majority of what people are seeing when they're having Bigfoot encounters that he's like a tulpa, some sort of a thought form, basically, that like. And again, this is just kind of one aspect of it. But I think that when you see him kind of blinking in and out, or people have, there's no footprints, or there's a very weird kind of error about the experience. I often think that what they're experiencing is some sort of like mass thought form or tulpa.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, Greg has a different idea.
I think he's a ghost. I think Bigfoot's a ghost of something that may have existed at one time.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's why the tracks can go for, 100 yards and then disappear into nowhere. And
whoa, interesting. Okay, what is a ghost?
Wow, Allie asking a hard question.
I don't.
Let's unpack that one.
Diane Sawyer over here.
I wish I knew.
Mm-hmm.
I can only give you my educated guess.
Yeah.
I think the longer we do this and the more we look into the actual psychology of ghost sightings, I'm led to believe more and more that ghosts are some lingering intelligence of people or entities, human, otherwise, that exist in another place that we can sometimes mentally access if our emotions are right,
If
or
everything's right.
the geological makeup of the place is right. I don't think that they're just dead people. I think that it's, there's a couple different things. So like if you want to say, you want to break it down, there's the intelligent haunting, which seem to be interactive. There's the ones that seem to just kind of play like a movie. Those are just like, they seem like weird impressions in places. And then there's another kind where I think we see this more than anything, is something we call an intentional haunting. And we see those so much because we deal with so many haunted objects.
Yes.
I think what people do is they put so much fear or emotion into something, they end up haunting it. And they don't realize it. So much of the stuff that we're sent never does anything for us. I would say 90-95% of the stuff people send us is haunted for them,
right?
But not necessarily for us. And I think you see that with locations a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
We've seen places that were never haunted. They're on one television show, one popular television show, talking about how haunted they are. And then they are haunted.
Yeah. John Tenney said that too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see it. I mean, one of a great example of that also is you can see it with if a group of people, if a group of psychics come in and they want to pass the spirits on or help them move on, they might have a profound experience and feel very much as if they've helped something move on. But then the second you invite another group of ghost hunters and suddenly the activity's back again. So it's so much about our intentions when we're actually investigating. And I think that really lends a lot to the activity that's going on. Like we're very much a part of the process as the people who are interacting with the entire thing.
Just a long-winded way to say we don't know.
Yeah.
No, but we learned so much from that. I'm the only one here who quote unquote believes in ghosts. Although I almost convinced Melissa.
I mean, I haven't seen a ghost.
Sure.
But like I believe in like the energies and like
that's what I said too.
It's like spiritually.
I would highly suggest, even if you don't believe in ghosts, if you're looking for a way to rationalize it, which I think is what most people who don't believe in ghosts are always doing. We need a way to rationalize it. Look into the work of someone by the name of Michael Persinger. He passed away not too long ago, but he has a really fantastic lecture online called No More Secrets. And this lecture he doesn't explicitly say it, but you can read between the lines. He talks every is likely connected by the Schumann resonance, which is this like 7 hertz electromagnetic signal that wraps around the earth. It takes about 10 minutes to upload and download because we are probably connected to that. That's probably to blame for a lot of psychic visitations. When people, mother and a daughter are in trouble and they're on different sides of the planet, the mother instinctually knows the daughter's in trouble.
Yeah.
Or they're visited by someone who just passed, almost like a coping mechanism. So I think that ghosts are all in our heads, but that doesn't mean they aren't real.
Right.
Interesting.
Oh, that is an interesting take on that.
So that goes into the science. Okay, so maybe the science does play a part in it.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
I think, when you start to look into some of the research that's being done by prominent parapsychologists, people like Dean Radin, for example, who wrote a bunch of really fantastic books about these types of topics, you start to notice they can prove to a greater degree than they can prove that aspirin works, that psychic phenomena is real to some degree. There is some idea that precognition is a thing that humans innately have. But because it sounds so new agey, a lot of people have trouble taking it seriously, even though parapsychology, it has more rigorous testing done on it for that exact reason. And I think the more we go further into the future with parapsychology, the more we're going to see that stuff does exist, and we'll start to be able to harness that stuff a little better, or maybe understand how it works a little more. I just think that the problem is we're so used to thinking ghosts are dead people and demons.
Right.
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? Is sort of like re-educating people about what they could be versus what we kind of have already. It's so much a part of pop culture. And when we think about ghosts, we're thinking about disembodied souls that are trapped on the planet. And there's so many different theories, and there's so much research that's been done to kind of not necessarily disprove that, but just kind of extend what we potentially are looking at. And I think that's where it gets really weird and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. So what kind of tools do you guys use when you're out in the field to kind of engage with these other spirits or whatever?
I mean, these days it's not so much the stuff with the blinky lights is always fun and looks really cool on camera. But the stuff we use more these days is, we're using things like, are you guys familiar with the God helmet?
Well, only because I saw it on your show and I was like, this is insane.
So we just built a new version of it that's like 4 or 5 times as powerful.
Oh my God.
So normally it has like 16 magnetic coils, and we upped ours to 64.
So for people who haven't watched your show yet, what is that, and what does it look like, or what does it do?
It is a device that was developed by Michael Persinger, Dr. Michael Persinger, and a guy by the name of Stanley Coren up at Laurentian University in Canada. And the reason they started working with this is they wanted to see what kind of effect electromagnetic fields or magnetic fields had on the brain. And they started to look at places that had significant reports of hauntings, UFO sightings, religious experiences, things like that, and noticed that a lot of them fell around geomagnetic anomalies or fault lines. And they release a lot of electromagnetic activity. Well, our brains are electromagnetic in a lot of ways. They decided they were going to build a special helmet that had a series of solenoids, magnets that were powered by low electric impulses to stimulate different hemispheres of the brain. They started doing this late 70s, early 80s, and they noticed that eventually people started to have pretty extreme experiences where they were having visitations from God. They were seeing dead loved ones. They were seeing lights that weren't there. They were hearing voices. And the more they played with this, the more they realized they could even cause particular feelings. They could cause feelings of excitement, fear, lust, all of that, just by targeting different portions of the brain. Eventually, the media dubbed it the God helmet because people were seeing God. But they also used it for psychic experiments. So what they would do is they would bring in remote viewers, really talented remote viewers. Ingo Swann is probably the most famous one. He was one that worked with the military. And they would arrange the coils in a particular pattern, and then they would have them perform remote viewing. And their hits would go way up when they were wearing it, but only if the geomagnetic noise was low. If the sun gives solar flares, and sometimes that seems to screw up whatever connection there is. So they started to form this theory that maybe when the conditions are right, you can use this helmet to connect to whatever cloud, so to speak, there is, and pull data from it. And whether that's ghosts, religious experiences, psychic phenomena, whatever. So that's the type of direction we typically go in the field these days.
I watched your show a bit ago, but correct me if I'm wrong. Did you guys connected with like I don't know, is it alien the right word? You don't know.
I think, in the moment, it very much felt like it was something that was ET, something that was extraterrestrial. The experience, it's very hard to describe, but the best way I can kind of put it into words is whatever I was communicating with, it didn't use language. It communicated through emotion and through symbolism. So I was sort of trying to figure out how to understand it. And once I started to get it, it felt very intuitive. It felt like, oh shit, yeah, like we should be talking like this all the time. It just felt very intuitive. And so there was very much a sense that what we were communicating with was something that was extraterrestrial, because it felt very ascended. It felt like it was really pushing us to understand how to communicate without language. And it was a really profound moment. I mean, I think even the rest of the group kind of felt very much like there was something legit going on.
Something weird happened.
What is this concept of like high strangeness that you guys talk about?
High strangeness is really just, it just seems like a better word than paranormal, because paranormal is something that people typically attribute to ghosts. Even though it just means things that are extra normal, things that are outside the normal realm. High strangeness is something that was written about as a term used by John Keel quite often. And John Keel is somebody that, his work resonates with us quite a bit, because he has the same ideas that this stuff is all, it appears different, but it's all probably connected somehow, probably all coming from the same place. So whether it's UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, psychic phenomena, whatever, probably all has the same source. And so we just started using high strangeness because I feel like it's a better descriptor than paranormal because of the connotations behind paranormal.
Got it. Melissa and Maria, do you guys have any questions?
Well, you have your paranormal museum. So what kind of stuff do you have in it?
All kinds of stuff. I think people, they tend to zone in on and focus in on the things that are, haunted items or cursed items, things like that. But it's everything from, significant pieces that are significant to paranormal or occult history. We have like original typewritten manuscripts for some of John Keel's books. Things like that too.
Pieces of clothing from some of the most iconic abductees in the moments where they were abducted and brought back. And
we have some of the original testing samples of Betty Hill's dress. Betty and Barney Hill were probably the most famous abductees in American history.
Wow.
Holy shit.
So like actual lab testing samples that they used to go, something weird happened to this woman.
How do you get those?
We know a lot of cool people. Pretty much. A lot of the items that we had, part of the reason we even started a museum is because people knew we were the weird kids, and they would give us, like, I swear this doll's haunted.
Yeah.
They would give us stuff like that. And we were already sort of collecting that anyway. And
I mean, it was weird. It started, we were invited to a convention to do a lecture about getting abducted by aliens. And they gave us as you do, and they gave us a table and we didn't really have anything to sell. And we have, again, at this time, we had so much weird stuff. So we were like, let's just bring some stuff with us and see if people are interested in it. And it just sort of snowballed from there. So now, I mean, a majority of the objects that we receive from people at events, I mean, they're all donated. So it's literally just people walking up to us with stuff under their arms, or they send us things to our PO box. And, a huge portion of what we're doing really with the objects is research. And so when we get something, it's sort of, it's like chapter 1 for us. And we really dig into not only the experiences that those people are having with the objects, but really what we want to understand is why they were active to begin with. And people ask us a lot, like, what's it like to own haunted objects? And we always kind of say, really, at the end of the day, we're kind of more like caretakers than anything else. And the common theme really is that a majority of the people who come to events or send us things or communicate with us, they're giving us something that for them holds fear and trauma. And so often what we're doing is really caretaking their trauma, because there's almost something therapeutic to them about just giving that away, and they don't have to carry it with them anymore. They don't feel the fear around the object or whatever it is that's imbued itself into that. They don't have to feel it anymore. So there's a process of letting it go. And so really what we do is a lot of caretaking for a lot of people's kind of fear. And a majority of those things, a small percentage of the objects that we receive are very active for us. But again, like you said, a few minutes ago, that a majority of what we get are they're not going to be active for us just because it's
mostly
very much
a psychological thing for these people, in order to kind of put their emotions, their trauma into a piece and then hand it away. And we're fine to put that on a shelf. And if they're better after that, that's fine too. That's a part of what we do as well.
Yeah. But there is a small percentage of things that we get that are just insane, and then we deal with it.
Yeah. What do you do for the ones that are active? Dana, I know you also are a witch. Do you do special like?
Yeah. The best description is whenever a new object joins the museum, there's like a very overwhelming sense of trying to figure out where its place is in that energy. Because if you want to think about the museum, sort of, someone at one point in time, they mentioned that they think the museum's building itself. So these objects are kind of coming to us for a reason. And so every time a new object comes into the house and joins the rest of the objects, it's sort of figuring out where they fit in that space. Because sometimes, as weird as it sounds, we'll have objects that just don't get along. It sounds really, but it's that energy. The energies are very, confrontational, and we experience then an uptick in activity in our home. So for me, really, it's a consistent. One of the things that we never want to happen is just for that energy to get stagnant. Because if it gets stagnant, then it roots itself into that space. So you have to clear it constantly. And then when new objects come in, it's like figuring out, okay, well, this thing, it's a little bit more intense, and is there a better way to technique to cleanse, or is there a space that it needs to be in that will kind of cause the activity to chill out a little bit? But it's just constantly kind of flushing that energy out so it doesn't have time to root and get stagnant, because that's when it gets crazy, and we're living in a space that we're not in control of, which is kind of not what we want.
Then you're in a haunted house.
Exactly.
That's not fair to you. I guess one last thing to close is you guys have a really cool Patreon and a Magic of the Month club. What is that, so our listeners can join that and take part in it? Yeah, we run a membership program for our museum, which helps us maintain our work. And we do all kinds of stuff for it. I mean, whether it's live investigations of some of the artifacts or some of the people that we work with, or even this weekend, we have a 3-day paranormal conference we're doing online since everything was canceled.
Oh, right. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, Dana has the Magic of the Month Club, which is pretty cool.
I do. I have a monthly subscription box that is essentially a ritual that I handcraft for all of the members. So it's kind of a nice introduction for some people into magic and witchcraft. And then for some people who've been doing it forever, it's nice to just have someone make things for you so that you could do it yourself. So yeah, every month we have a different themed ritual, and it shows up in your mailbox.
That's awesome. And where can people find you guys online or see your work?
Yeah, if people are curious, they can go to paramuseum.com. And all the links to pretty much everything we do is there. If they're interested in Hellier, they can go to hellier.tv, and the whole thing's available for free on YouTube or Amazon Prime.
Awesome. And Dana, say your ghost show again so everyone can watch it?
it's the Girly Ghost Hunters.
Awesome.
Again, don't judge me for my early 2000s fashion. There's a lot of bad choices.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. This was so fun.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.
An Erios original.
Powered by Acast.